Welcome back to Walsall Fan TV, the Joy and the Pain podcast. Well. We are preparing for Walsall at home to Colchester. And it's always good to find out what's going on with our visitors. Well, this visitor is John Waldron. Hi, John.
Good afternoon. Hi.
All right, mate. Now, John has followed Colchester for 18 years. He's a reporter now, so he's sort of ingrained in the Colchester mindset. And I firstly want to start off with Gabriel Sutton, our resident tipster, had got you guys for 10th. After a postponement and then 3 defeats, you were looking like the whipping boys of the division. And then Saturday, 3 goals in 18 minutes away to Gillingham, who were trying to turn into Leighton Orient. And it's all come good for you. How did that happen? Was that coming, or was a player come back from injury, or what's happened?
I think it had been coming. It wasn't as if the performances had been terrible before that. They were 2-1 up against MK Dons with a few minutes to go in their previous game 7 days earlier and lost 3-2, which was a real kind of blow. But the performances haven't been particularly bad at all, really. And it was one of those where it all came good for Colchester on the day at Gillingham. They were good defensively. It was their first clean sheet of the season. They kept at bay a team that had been doing pretty well. You know, they'd won 4 in a row.
4 1-0, wasn't it?
All 1-0 without conceding. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the fact that they kept them 0-0 sort of until half time gave them Colchester a bit of confidence, and they went in at a break kind of feeling that, you know, they could win the game. And once they got that first goal, you know, the confidence just oozed through the team, and they played with a bit of freedom, and a couple of the young players scored really good goals, and it was just a really, really good all-round day for Colchester. I think if you speak to the coaches and the players, they probably were confident that it was always going to happen, that, you know, they were on the right track. It was just that, you know, things hadn't quite gone their way in the previous games. Yeah. So, yeah, but it was a much-needed win, certainly.
And it was quite a tough start, really. MK Dons, Wimbledon and Bradford. Not easy games to kick off a campaign. MK Dons started remarkably well, haven't they? But Did they look very good?
Yeah, MK Dons looked sharp. But, you know, Colchester were unfortunate in that their first game of the season was a home game against Swindon, and there was a lot of anticipation ahead of that game because Ben Garner was the former Swindon manager. There were 1 or 2 links there player-wise as well. And for that to be called off and so late as well, you know, it was a waterlogged pitch on the first day of the season. It's completely unheard of, really. And it was a blow, really. It was, you know, obviously the players and the manager, they, you know, let's move on to the next one. But, you know, that was a real shame. And then, of course, it ended up being that the first game of the season was away at Bradford, which was a tough start for them. They had the Carabao Cup game at Cardiff City before that, which was a toughie as well, and a lot of travelling. And so, you know, this was a tricky start for Colchester United. And I think, you know, that's why perhaps we shouldn't read too much into their results early on. You know, there's been a lot of transition at the club over the summer, and I think it does take a little while for those players to sort of settle into the squad. So yeah, it's been a tough opening few weeks for them, but I think a lot of relief after the Gillingham win.
I think it was a similarly tough start for Walsall. We all thought Morecambe were going to be sort of teetering down the bottom, but they've started very well. And then we had Stockport and Wrexham. So that's not the games you want to be sort of just slowly tiptoeing in with a new team. Last season, Colchester were down there, and then a bit of an influx of players and sort of pulled you out the depths. How did you go through that personally? Was that the torture, the pain that we mentioned?
Yeah, there was a lot of pain along the way. I mean, it was a funny season really last year because they started with Wayne Brown in charge, and he went in September time, and they appointed Matt Bloomfield, who was kind of no one really expected to be named as head coach. It was his first job. He came in from Wickham, and actually lifted the team and did particularly well. And then January, as you mentioned there, that there were a lot of players that came in, and the club spent a bit of money to kind of shore up their position. And it took time for those players to gel and to get used to being at the club. And Matt Bloomfield then went to Wickham to take over there, and then Ben Garner came in March. And so there was a lot of change at Colchester last season, and a lot of things going on. And in the end, Ben Garner got them over the line, had a particularly good run sort of towards the end of the season, April time, and that was what did the trick. But it was a tough season for the fans and the club really, and it's been a tough 3 seasons really in terms of staying in the division and battling against relegation towards the end of the season really.
Yeah, well, Walsall have had a similar game. I was surprised actually. Colchester, I thought they had like new owners or something, the way they were splashing the cash, but it was just fear of going down, and the board decided, hang on, we're gonna spend some money.
Yeah, I mean, it raised a few eyebrows, I think, sort of within the division. There was a few comments sort of made by managers after games sort of about the spending that had been going on. I don't know if they were actually mentioning Colchester by name, but certainly I think there were 1 or 2 references to the amount of money that had been spent. It's kind of surprising really, because Colchester United have never really been that sort of club. That a lot of emphasis at Colchester is there in the academy, and a lot of money is invested in the academy in order for those players to come in and play for the first team and eventually go on and play for higher teams. So it was quite a difference in approach really from Colchester. I mean, one of the reasons was that the owner perhaps felt that he was in a bit better of a financial position than perhaps he was 6 months, 12 months before that, because of COVID and so on. It was a difficult time for him in particular with all of his businesses. And I think he felt perhaps in January time that, he was overcoming some of those problems, and there was a little bit more money for the club to spend there to bring the players in. And as you mentioned, they were in a position where they needed strengthening and needed to have that lift in order to move away from the danger zone. So, essentially it worked, because the likes of Connor Hall and Fikra Kelleher and Tom Hopper came in, loads of experience, and lifted everyone and played really well. And Arthur Reed was another one. And it did the trick in the end, despite the sort of managerial upheaval.
Yeah. We had a fans forum last night, and they were talking about the development squad and that sort of stuff. Have you had a lot of players coming through the youth team then?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's something that the club, and particularly Robbie Cowling, the chairman, have been very quick to sort of emphasise over the years. And he personally has put a lot of money into it. He really believes in young players, and he wants to see them do well for Colchester. They're in the professional development league, so they're competing against some of the top academies in the country. And the result of that is that you have got individual players coming through quite regularly now, playing for the first team. So at the moment, the Junior Chamadou is the main kind of standout player. He's just been named in the PFA Team of the Year for League Two for last season, and had already been named in the League Two team, and was named Young Player of the Year for League Two last year.
What's his name? Champion?
Junior Chamadou. Yeah.
Chamadou.
Yeah, he's 19.
Oh, is that the one begins with T?
Yes, that's right.
Got you.
Yeah.
Chamadou. Yeah. He's playing on the right side of midfield.
Yeah, he's a right back, but he can play right wing back. He's very fast. He loves getting forward, but also he's a very promising defender. He's been linked with a move away all through the summer to Championship clubs. It's not quite materialised yet. It could happen before the window closes on Friday. So it may be that he doesn't play Walsall on Saturday. But he's probably one of the biggest success stories to come out of the academy for Colchester.
How old is he, Chamadou?
He's 19.
19.
Yeah, he made his debut at 16, so it feels like he's been around a long time, but he's still very, very young. And Noah Chilvers, as I mentioned, sort of a playmaker, has come up through the ranks at Colchester. He's been there since the age of 8. He's 22 now, vice captain, regular under Ben Garner, and he'll almost certainly play on Saturday. So they're 2 main ones. Samson Tavido is another one who scored against Gillingham on Saturday, and is really thought of very highly by Ben Garner, who's put a lot of faith in him, and a very strong kind of robust striker that defenders hate playing against. So he's one to watch as well. So, but there's 2 or 3 others that are really knocking on the door, and I think Colchester had 5 academy players on the pitch at one time or another last weekend. So they really do put a lot of emphasis
That's
in that.
good.
Yeah.
Walsall's academy development seems to have stalled. Of course, the Premier League teams sort of grab off some of the better players, as we know, and it does make it a very expensive thing to maintain a development team. What with the youth players, and then you can get sort of first-year scholars, which we generally do, but then of those, it's only really the elite of those that get through. So it was only 2 that came through last season. And I think it might have only been 1 the season before. So that supply line of young players has sort of halted, really. So Walsall have been looking more to pick up players released from Premier and Championship clubs.
Yeah.
I think there's quite a few doing that. One of the questions to the manager last night was about the fact that we haven't got a development team or a reserve team playing in a league this season. The manager, Matt Sadler, was saying he gets basically behind closed doors friendlies against anybody, and he can sort of grab them anytime he wants.
Yeah.
So that's a different route. Everybody likes when one of their own, as it were, gets into the first team, and of course they've got so much more passion for the club, having come through that. So I can imagine the likes of Chamadou and Chilvers and Tavidi are going to be sort of like Colchester through and through, and are going to have a positive outlook and positive mindset for the club.
Yeah. Saying that though, Colchester have gone down the route of bringing in Premier League, Championship young players on loan as well. They're combining the 2. They've got a very young squad, really. So you've got the likes of Owen Goodman, the goalkeeper from Crystal Palace, who's started every game so far. Moro Bandera from Arsenal on a season-long loan. These kind of guys, they're at Southampton. Nico Lawrence has come in as a centre-half. So they're also looking at that. They've got good contacts within the game, and but of course with young players, they're still learning essentially, aren't they? And you're going to get that in games.
I think with what League Two's become, it is sort of like a match time stuff for developing Premier League players. So we've got a couple of loans. One from Motherwell, I think he was Ross Tierney. I could have that completely wrong. And from Lincoln, Harry Draper. He's a 19-year-old who is very, very impressive. Very, very solid for a 19-year-old. Very quick, got really quick feet. He's just got the 1 goal so far, but he looks like he's a proper old player. It's one of those that you wish you could keep him permanently. And after the occurrence of last season, "Don't fall in love with loan players" was the tagline. We had Danny Johnson on loan from Mansfield. It was never going to end well when you got competing with a team in the same division and you got somebody on loan. But he scored 15 goals in 30 for us. And then in January, they pulled him back and tripled the price that had been agreed for his transfer. So that didn't happen. But then he was out of contract end of the season and he came back to us permanently. So we've got him there now up front with Draper. And Walsall, again, similar to Colchester, really, have got a very young team. I think 6 or 7 of the 11 were sort of like averaging 20, 21.
Right.
So it's difficult. Got a few experienced heads. One of our experienced heads was a left-sided centre-back, previously left wing-back with Stockport, Chris Hussey. He's in his 30s, 32, I think, 33. Well, he got sent off, so he's not going to be playing on Saturday. So that's one of our experienced heads. And a player that we'd brought from Newport, I call him the Priest, Priestley Farquharson. I don't know whether you've come across him.
I definitely heard that name, yes.
it's not an easy name to keep saying, so hence why I went Priest, really, just for reduced editing, as you can imagine. Hopefully he's going to be back, but he hasn't featured yet this season. So we have been putting youngsters in, young, inexperienced players. Again, it was sort of, when I was looking at the squad, there was like 6, 7 of the players got less than 50 senior games each.
Yeah.
And of those games, a lot of those were not EFL games, they were non-league games. But they're starting to find their way, and keeping clean sheets is something we've not really we've not done yet. So that's something we need to tighten up. I think the manager is sticking with 3-5-2, but maybe 4 at the back with Chris Hussey missing may work.
Yeah.
We'll have to see. It's going to be a tough one. It's one that Colchester don't need to win, obviously. Walsall desperately need to get things moving. We've got another tough month with some tough away games coming up. I think Salford is the Saturday after. So that's another one. Our away form has not been great, really. I think other than in the FA Cup, we haven't won away from home this year yet.
Really? Oh dear.
So that's not good. But generally, at home, we have been better. And as we said before, we went online, that 2014, what's that? 2014 was the last time you beat us, was it?
Just looking quickly now, yeah, just May 2014 was the last time Colchester won at Walsall, and it was a 1-0 win. I seem to remember Frankie Kent making his debut, who's gone on and played for Peterborough and is now at Hearts that day. But yeah, it was a very much an end of season feel to that particular match. Colchester scraped the 1-0 win. I think it was Craig Eastman that scored from memory. But no, that's the last time Colchester won at Walsall. So it's not been a brilliant, happy hunting ground for the U's over the years.
Well, hopefully on this occasion we'll have to see whether we can continue your pain on visiting Walsall. But I mean, obviously the win at Gillingham has woken up the division to the potential of Colchester, without doubt. As I say, Gabriel Sutton got you tipped for 10th place finish. Do you think that's on, or do you think that's a bit optimistic?
No, I think that would be pretty accurate. I think Colchester be hoping it'll be even higher than that. Really, I know it's they haven't had the start that they were looking to have, but it's a long season. I think as they go on and the players get used to sort of being at the club, and Ben Garner sort of sits on his best team, and I think they can certainly move up that table, and the playoffs shouldn't be something that that they feel they can't achieve. I think they can get up into that area. It's just keeping players fit is important, isn't it? And I think they've had 2 or 3
depth of the squad as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's going to be tested in the next week or two, because they've had a couple of injuries already, and Nico Lawrence, who I mentioned, he's could potentially be out for Saturday's game. He's been starting every match and is looking really solid, so he'll be a miss for them. Ellis Iandolo, who came in from Swindon in the summer, is another one that's out for at least 6 weeks. Tom Dallas and centre half, another one. So it's not ideal when you're having injuries sort of piling up a little bit at this stage of the season, but I would expect 1 or 2 new faces to come in before Saturday's game, before the deadline happens. So you'd imagine that there might be 1 or 2 debutants playing on Saturday.
Yeah, it's a tough one, really. I think because we're now pretty much a 100-minute game. It's been able to use the bench. You need a stronger squad, don't you know?
It's really important, isn't it? Yeah, you need players that are going to be able to come in and hit the ground running as soon as they're asked. And one thing Ben Garner has done is he's brought in players that can play in various different positions, and I think that's a deliberate move, really. That there are versatile performers in that squad that can do a job for him. And you know, a lot of experience as well as youth as well. So he probably feels that he's got the right blend at the moment. But I think he, you know, speaking to you right now, I think he would like at least 2 or 3 new players in that squad before the deadline closes, because
Depends whether the money's available. And
it
say
does.
Chimandu, if he moved on, he would provide the funds, I guess.
I think that's it. I think a lot of it hinges
That
on
balancing, budget balancing game, isn't it?
yeah, absolutely. Especially when you've spent a few quid in the summer already, and then you're going to the chairman, sort of asking for even more before the deadline closes. So I think, you know, as you rightly say, I think Junior, if Junior Chama did move on, you're probably looking at least £1 million for him, and that would be massive for a club like Colchester United. And I would imagine some of that will be reinvested in the squad. So whether that's for this window or for the January window and beyond, I don't know, but certainly would affect their strategy going into this last 3 days of the window.
Yeah. So if Chamadu's there on Saturday, he's the main man to watch for, isn't he?
I would say he's one of them. Yeah, he's up there. I mean, Samson Tavide for me is the one that's sort of catching the eye, not only because he's a young, he's very, very sort of lively young forward. You know, if you're up against Samson Tavide as a centre half, you're going to have a very tough afternoon. You might not have, you know, he may have a brilliant game, he might not, but he'll always give absolutely everything. And it'll be
is he a big, strong guy? Is he
strong, really strong young lad? He's streetwise as a striker, you know, and he's obviously undoubtedly talented as a forward as well. He knows where the goal is. He's learning all the time, but you know, he will give as good as he gets against any centre half.
How old was he, John?
He's only 18 or 19. He's still a teenager. Yeah.
Similar to Draper, then, I guess.
Yeah. He's very young, but a bit raw still. He's only just sort of, you know, broken into the first team squad, you know, in the last 12 months or so. But you know, I think he's kind of relishing the fact that Ben Garner really has a lot of faith in him and trusts him, and he's really showing that potential now. And you know, he was my man of the match against Gillingham. Just his all-round game. So yeah, I think he's the one probably for fans to look out for on Saturday.
Yeah, the number 9 and the number 22. Then Fevrier, what do you know about him?
Yeah, an interesting one, Jaden Fevrier. He came in from West Ham last summer, was released by West Ham. Came in last season, didn't really have too much first team action, mostly playing for the under-21s. He's still only young himself, I think 19, 20. Has come in as a winger, but has actually been playing as a wing back for Colchester this season. He's got really a lot of pace, very fast. He had a very good game against Cardiff in the Carabao Cup. He set up a couple of goals and just kind of hit the ground running really in that first game of the season. And he's not really looked back since. Has done really well for Colchester in the first few games of the season. So yeah, he's another one to watch.
Yeah, it seems like you've got a very attacking team, similar to Walsall, really.
Yeah, I think it should be a good game on Saturday in that respect. And if you look at
I know it'll be 0-0, will it?
Well, famous last words, but you'd like to think that there'll be goals. I mean, Ben Garner is that sort of coach.
He's a very good manager, isn't he? I was surprised he left Swindon, but I think that was he saw what was happening with Swindon, because they're always in financial mess, aren't they, Swindon?
Yeah, I mean, he had that fantastic year with them when he got them to the playoffs and they lost to Port Vale in the semi-final on penalties, and that was really unfortunate. And then obviously he was gone after that, went on to Charlton Athletic, and he's been unfortunate really with regards to stuff that's perhaps gone on off the field with both of those clubs, which has inhibited his own progress as a head coach. But I think Colchester fans were delighted when he was appointed as the new manager, and Ben seemed very, very happy to be at the club and still does. It's got Scott Marshall alongside him, who's an experienced coach, has been with him at Swindon and Charlton as well, ex-Arsenal defender. And they seem to work very well together, the two of them. What Colchester fans are liking at the moment is that they brought in managers from outside. Matt Bloomfield and now Ben Garner, whereas before the club were very much sort of appointing internal managers, and that it got. I think fans were getting a little bit tired of that. I mean, it was quite healthy for Colchester to bring in a.
You've probably heard the term the cheap option.
Well, that could be argued, yes. But I think if you're Robbie Cowling, the chairman, he would suggest that he's got some talented coaches within his club, and he feels like it's only fair to promote them and to give them the opportunity to flourish, and that's what he's done with a lot of the guys like Hayden Mullins, Wayne Brown, Joe Dunn over the years, and for one reason or another it hasn't worked out for most of them, but I think it's a breath of fresh air really to have someone come in from an outside point of view and look at things from afar maybe and just make decisions, and it seems to be a slightly different approach now for Colchester.
Well, Walsall had made some brave appointments. Mike Flynn looked like he was going to be a great manager for us, and that sort of went south. Over defensive and just no life to the team really. But now Walsall have gone for the cheap option. Matt Sadler, who'd been a coach with the previous 3 managers and a former player, and he's been given the helm. Now, the last period of success Walsall had was with Dean Smith in charge. Dean Smith went on to Brentford, Aston Villa, and more recently Leicester. And he was very successful, but he was the Walsall youth team coach. So he sort of came alive with the Walsall team, and maybe Matt Sadler can do the same. But it's early days, and many fans are sort of like, oh, we've gone for the cheap option. A couple of poor results, and it's like, oh, well, it's because he don't know what he's doing. But I mean, I think they all know what they're doing, and it's a case of whether they get that stroke of luck, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, and you'd like to think when a manager's appointed that's familiar to the fans and has history with the club, that they're likely to, the supporters are likely to give that manager a little bit more time, perhaps a little bit more patience.
Possibly, not all fans.
No. There's and that's understandable because they want to see their team successful, of course. But with Colchester, there was always a lot of goodwill towards the internal appointments. It was just sometimes it just doesn't work out, and there's an air of sentimentality there as well, which perhaps doesn't help. But it'd be interesting to see how Matt Sadler gets on.
Over the years, we've had some funny ones. John Whitney, he was the physio that got given the job, and he kept the job for 3 years. And then Brian Dutton, he was the coach that got given the job, and it was sort of, it did echo cheap option, but Walsall got a bit more money behind them now, and we've got a much better squad, a much stronger squad than we've had for a couple of years. So it is looking better, but then you need the man at the helm who's capable of taking it forward. Graham Alexander was in the running, but Matt Sadler was the best candidate for the job ahead of Graham Alexander. And so seeing Graham Alexander with MK Dons at the top of the division does smart a little bit, as you can imagine. But it's where you end up, I suppose. And Mike Flynn, we were sure that Swindon were going to get boring football, and then they go and win 6.
Yeah.
So
it's water.
But again, it's what's it going to be like at the end of the season? You got to give them time, haven't you?
Absolutely, yeah. It's very early days still. Yeah.
And what's your predicted lineup for Colchester on Saturday?
I would imagine they'll have to make at least one change because Nico Lawrence, the centre back, was injured at Gillingham, and it looks like it could be something that might keep him out for a few weeks. So that's one. I think Owen Goodman will be in goal, and then you're looking at the 3 centre halves there. I'd imagine Fikra Kelleher, who came on as a substitute for Nico Lawrence in that game, will start on Saturday. He's a very good defender, and he's actually scored in that game. So he's welcome back to him because he's a very popular player with Colchester fans. He'll come in, and also Connor Hall will play in centre half as well. He's the captain, who was at Port Vale last season and was one of Colchester's January signings. So he'll be there. The two wing backs will be Junior Chamadou and Jaden Fevrier, I'd imagine.
Plenty of pace there, as you said.
Absolutely, yeah. They'll use the width of the pitch as much as they can. You've got Arthur Reed, who's sort of sitting midfielder, combative midfielder, who sort of keeps everything ticking over in the centre of midfield. Noah Chilvers is another one who I mentioned earlier, the young lad who has come up through the academy ranks at Colchester. And then it's kind of tricky because I think probably he'll go with Samson Tavide up front, and then whether or not any new signings come in, or he could revert back to sort of the team that played against Gillingham. Will Greenwich is another one who did particularly well, and he'll probably play as another centre half. So I'd imagine it'll be three at the back with wing backs, and then you've got the two sitting midfielders, and then
like 3-5-2 or 3-1-4-2 kind of.
3-1-4-2 sounds about right. Yeah, I think it's quite a fluid formation for Colchester, but there's a lot of kind of changes during games as well. So, but then they'll look to play the ball around and attack as much as they can. Really, that's the philosophy so far.
So that's going to be you're definitely going to be at us.
Yeah, I think so. I think that because of the win at Gillingham, I think there'll be a lot of confidence in the team.
I'll cock a hoop, I would think. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that'll give them a boost, and especially as it came away from home, I guess that the fact if they can do that at Gillingham, they'll feel they can do that anywhere really in the division, given Gillingham start. So I think it should be an interesting game. Hopefully,
I'm worried now. Walsall have gone 3-5-2 pretty much all the time, but with Hussey out, it is possible, as I mentioned earlier, that we might go 4 at the back.
Yeah,
I think if we did go 4 at the back, that would likely to be young Joe Folks as right back, with Liam Gordon left back, and then Daniels and McKenty at the back 4. But it's about the Priest, really. If the Priest is fit to play, we'll stick with a 3-5-2, which would then be Priest, Daniels, and then on that left side, possibly McKenty moving over there, or young Harry Williams. He's only 19. I think he was brought in from Alvechurch, really, as a backup player, but he's played virtually every game so far. So he's been getting more game time than perhaps they would have liked. In the midfield 3 is getting set now with Ryan Stirk, former Birmingham. Spent some time with Mansfield on loan last season. He's impressed. Got his first goal last Saturday. Ross Tierney and Isaac Hutchinson. Isaac Hutchinson, he is the frustrating one, really. All the opposition managers talk about him as if he's like, we've got to try and keep him quiet, and he is such a talent, but so inconsistent. So obviously, during his inconsistent times, that's when people are trying to keep him quiet and doing a good job. He's probably not the most combative, but he's quite good on the ball. So how well he plays may determine how well Walsall ultimately play.
He's actually got a Colchester link. His younger brother is at Colchester, Jake Hutchinson.
Oh, is that his younger brother?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He's not actually figured much for the first team, not at all really in pre-season, but he's one that a lot of the fans want to see more of. He's scored goals for the youth team, and he's been out on loan at National League level last year with Aldershot. But just doesn't seem.
Aldershot, that was it, yeah.
Yeah, he just doesn't seem to have had a bit of an opportunity really so far. But he's been playing regularly for the under-21s.
So his big brother sort of leading the light with it?
Well, yeah, it seems like a talented family they've got there. I
was going to say, it's whether he can top it and keep going, isn't it? That's the thing. If we've got the wing backs in full flight, you'll have Tom Knowles. He's returning to fitness. was his first game back last Saturday, so he probably won't play all of the game. And Liam Gordon on the left, he's a very athletic wing back. Doesn't quite get forward enough for me. It's just a confidence thing, I think, just to keep him going. Up front, Danny Johnson he knows exactly where the goal is, and he's a finisher. So he doesn't miss many when given the opportunity. It's just getting the ball through to him. And then the other guy, Freddie Draper, as I mentioned, he's 18, I think, coming up to 19. He's an absolute terrier, and he's very strong, very quick, very good feet. He's got an assist and a goal, I think, in his first couple of games, but he's going to do very well. But both him and DJ, Danny Johnson, they're not, I wouldn't say they're fully fit. That's what Matt Sadler was saying. He has been taking them off sort of round about the 65, 70 minute mark because they're not quite their fitness yet, which Aramidi Auti, a player we picked up from Crawley.
Ex-Colchester.
Ex-Colchester, is he?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he's he was at Walsall previously on loan and wasn't very impressive. But every time he's come on, he's looked very, very good. He's looked very, very good. And he'd be really pushing for a start if it wasn't for the fact that we got DJ and Draper up front. I think if we were to go three at the front in a 3-4-3, it would definitely be the left-sided attacker on there. Did he do well for Colchester, did he?
Yeah, he wasn't at Colchester for particularly long, and he didn't get too many opportunities. He wasn't starting much, really. He was more coming off the bench, so we didn't see too much of him, to be honest with you. But he looked a skillful player, talented player. Whenever he was on the pitch, he just perhaps didn't get the opportunities that he would have wanted. So he wasn't at Colchester a particularly long time. He was only a brief loan spell. So, but Danny Johnson is one that Colchester fans will look out for, because Colchester were very heavily linked with Danny in January, and as I'm sure you remember well, there was a lot of speculation at the time, wasn't there, with Mansfield and what was going to happen with him. Was he going to sort of go to stay at Walsall, or was he going to go back there and play? And Colchester were very heavily linked with him, but obviously didn't materialise.
I think Danny Johnson had loved his time at Walsall and wanted to come back to Walsall, I think. Originally, this is all alleged figures, but originally Walsall had agreed a fee of 75,000 to buy Danny Johnson, and then at the last minute the chairman said no, just a loan. And then in January Walsall tried to buy him, and he put a £225,000 price tag on him when he's got 6 months left on his contract. So you can imagine how long that conversation was.
Yeah.
And then Walsall had him for nothing 6 months later. So, and then he pretty much sat on the bench for Mansfield. So it was cut off your nose, spite your face kind of thing. But Danny Johnson was just really keen to come back to Walsall. Walsall had loved him. He played his best football, got his best goal return for his career. So he just really wanted to be here. And he's sort of settled. And he's got a couple of goals without a game, which a couple of games without a goal even. So I think he'll be back on target Saturday, I would guess.
Talking of strikers, I failed to mention Joe Taylor for Colchester United now. I don't know how, because he's had a great start to the season. I think he's scored 4 goals. He's coming from Luton Town on loan. And, it was a bit of a coup, really, for Colchester. He played in the playoff final against Coventry, had a goal disallowed, scored one of the penalties in the shootout. Effectively a Premier League player. He's signed for Colchester on a season-long loan, and he looks a really good signing. He's very fast. He knows where the goal is. He's a good link-up player as well. So, him and Tavide, that could potentially be a very good partnership.
Yeah, I think the Walsall's back line is a bit sort of disturbed at the moment. I think that's not helping. Hence why we've conceded a few goals. So that's going to take some trickery to keep that clean sheet, which is what we're looking for. The only player I haven't mentioned so far is one that's dividing opinion at Walsall. He's likely to be an off the bench player for us on Saturday, and that's Jamil Matt.
Oh yes.
Now everybody knows about Jamil Matt. He's got a tremendous goal scoring record, but since he's been at Walsall, he's only got the one goal. It's just not quite happened for him. He's struggled with a few injuries. He's just not quite got there. At the fans forum, people were saying like, "Oh, he's finished. Just get rid of him." And the manager was very strongly defending him. It's just getting him the right kind of service.
Mm.
He's great. Yeah.
Yeah, he's one player that has scored quite a few goals against Colchester over the years.
Has he? Oh, we got to get it. We'll start him.
Yeah.
We'll start
him then. He broke Colchester hearts a few years back because Colchester went on the final day of the season and went to Lincoln and won 3-0. And Lincoln had already been promoted, which was a fantastic result. But they needed results elsewhere to go for them to get into the playoffs. And he scored for Newport, I believe, that day, and to rob Colchester of their playoff place. And so Colchester fans will always remember him for that. But he scored against them for other teams, I'm sure, Forest Green and one or two others. So yeah, he's one that there's certain players that seem to do well against certain clubs, and he's one.
Yeah.
Colchester don't really like seeing.
At the end of last season, when we couldn't get DJ after January, Walsall brought in Matt Stevens and Jamil Matt, which is like the Matt attack from Forest Green.
Yeah.
But Matt Stevens had just recovered from just on his recovery from an ACL, and Jamil Matt had been struggling with an injury, and neither of them shone at all.
No.
When they came in, we thought, blooming heck, these would be even better than DJ, but it didn't happen. No. And I think that's part of the reason why he's not seen particularly well at Walsall at the minute. And he needs a good goal, I think. He needs a goal or two.
Yeah, the thing with strikers, if you can get that goal, it really does make a massive difference, and you can actually kick on from there. It changes everything, really.
Yeah. But I was really confident about Saturday until talking to you, so thanks for that, John.
Oh, I'm sorry about that, yeah. But you wish you hadn't spoken to me now.
Score prediction?
I tend to sit on the fence a lot, and I probably will again, I'm afraid. I think I might go for a draw. I think Colchester are very capable of scoring goals, but they are capable of conceding as well, although obviously it was a great clean sheet at Gillingham on Saturday. But as we mentioned earlier, I think Walsall has always been a tough place for Colchester to go to over recent years at least. So I'm going to go for 1-1 draw, I think.
1-1 draw. I'm hopeful for a win because we really need a win, both for the manager and for the confidence of the team, which never bodes well when that's the reason you wanted to win. But I think I'm going to go for a very narrow 1-goal win. Whether that's 3-2 or 2-1, who knows? But I would say to anybody watching, anybody listening, don't bet on a 0-0 draw.
It's very wise words, given certainly from a Colchester point of view, that you're going to get some entertainment, hopefully.
Yeah, well, that's it. Well, Walsall have been much more entertaining this season. We're creating a lot more chances, creating a lot more goals. We've got about 9 different goal scorers in our first 11 goals, which is crazy. Well, anyway, thanks very much for coming on, John.
It's a pleasure.
As we say on the channel, the joy and the pain. Hopefully, a bit more joy for Walsall, and just a little glimmer of pain for Colchester before a solid season, I think. So we wish you well, but not for Saturday. That's the essence.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to be on your show, and let's hope for a good game on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be an entertaining game. I'm sure it'll be fun and good one. Thanks for watching. Cheers.